Today we are going to talk about one more elephant in the room, and that is a reading habit. As the title of the thumbnail says, reading habit. So I'm going to talk about the reading habit today. So you must have heard from many of the people, many of the teachers even, that reading habit is very good for an IQ test. So we are going to look at that theory much more closely, and let's look at how practical that theory is. Now, before moving into it, just a point. Reading is a very good habit, and reading actually helps a lot in life. So reading is a very good habit. So there are no questions about it. That's not the thing or the paradigm I'm discussing today. What exactly I'm discussing is reading habit good for an IQ test? Okay. So as you must have seen my video in which I talked about how much vocabulary is needed for an IQ test, the same kind of this video is also in the same kind of a bracket. So we are just looking at the paradigm shifting, or as I told you in that video, it's just like a 10th man concept. The 10th man concept is a concept in which a person looks at the whole concept or whole paradigm जो चलता है उसको एक contrary view से देखता है. Just looking at the theory, you all people are the people who believe in rational thinking, okay, logical thinking. So logic always says, आप सबका सुनो, but always test everything before indulging into it. So this video actually will help you in that paradigm shifting. Now, as I told you, the elephant in the room is the reading habit. So what exactly, let's say if I'm looking at any of the verbal test, what kind of topics we see? Okay, we may see topics from humanities, we even see it from eco, the commerce side, business side, science and technology side, and some other branches. Now, but when we say that you must be reading everything whatever is coming in your hand, for example, many of the people I've heard actually, and many of the teachers, many of my friends, my fellow teachers, my respected teachers, always said that fiction, autobiography or mythology is very good for developing that kind of reading habit for CAT or GMAT or SAT. But when I started looking at that theory and started applying the same theory, I've had some kind of opinions which differed. I'll just put it in front of you. You have every right to choose, not to choose. You have every right to look at, not look at. You consider anyone as stupid, anyone as you must follow this person's theory, or he's a genius, he's a fool, you can do that. But then also, it's I would say, check your theory before indulging into it or before practically moving into it. Now, when I say science and technology, people will say Stephen Hawking. Why not to read Stephen Hawking and you will be very good in science and technology, every kind of passages. Now let's look at this kind of a understanding or an idea. Reading Stephen Hawking, or if you want to have a look at autobiographies or fiction, let's say, fiction helps you a lot of creativity it brings to the table. Yes, it does. Now, when you look at an IQ test, most of the times what we see is you have very specified branches which they focus upon. Okay, now should we only try to gain the knowledge in that particular branches or particular subjects? That's the one thing which you should be thinking about. Now, what exactly reading habit gives you? The first thing it will give you is a good vocabulary. The second thing it will teaches you to read very fast. The third thing which it will give you is a lot of knowledge. And the fourth thing it will give you will understand the thing very easily if you have the knowledge of that subject. Now, whenever you would be talking to the teachers, like even the people who will say that reading is good for an IQ test, what they will talk about is a knowledge and the understanding aspect. Now, Let's look at this factor. The last factor, vocabulary I've already handled in one of the videos which you might have seen by now. Now, let's look at the factor of knowledge and understanding. Now, what kind of a level of knowledge and understanding is needed for an IQ test? That's what we are going to look at. Now, there are two ways to move into it. The first thing is reading fictions, reading autobiography and everything like that. And so what exactly you're doing is you are actually shooting in a room with no target actually. You are actually shooting everywhere. So what exactly it will happen is your time, your energy and everything is spent on getting a knowledge or the understanding which you may not need. What exactly is needed is you do a smart reading. What is smart reading? The point number one, if you are able to understand your graduate level books, you are good in the language aspect of the game. Okay, so that's the first point. Number two, vocabulary I've already talked, I'll not move into the vocabulary. The most important thing is the knowledge and the understanding. What we have seen in many of our classes is, if you have the basic terminology understanding of various subjects, let's say till around 8th or 9th or 10th standard, you would be able to handle any kind of passage very easily. Once more I'm repeating the point. The point what I'm saying is, if you have a basic terminology, kind of a understanding of different subjects, for let's say in a safe scenario, let's take if you have the understanding till around 10th standard, which everyone would have done. So a lot of people might have forgot what they read in 10th. It can happen. But when you will look at any NCERT book, you will remember each and everything, because that whole thing is in your memory. Okay, the only thing you need is a brushing up, and you don't have to read all the books of the NCERT. I'm saying basic terminology. What does carnivore means? What does herbivore means in science, let's say? In, let's say, eco or the business side, we may say, what is a GDP? What is inflation? So the point what I'm trying to say is, if you have the basic knowledge, and not the knowledge, I'm not talking about the subject knowledge, just basic terminology. If I'll say to you any kind of an example, let's say I'm taking the passage from humanities or the social science or business or eco side, or maybe science and technology, all the passages in all tests, whether you are talking about GMAT, CAT, SAT, CUET, any kind of a IQ test you may talk about, what you will see is a basic terminology you needed. So there are two ways in front of you. The first way is read everything, read every autobiography, read every fiction, read every mythology, everything, and your creativity will grow and everything. What will happen is you will be losing a lot of time, effort and energy into things which you may not need for that IQ test. Will it help in the life? Yes, it does. Reading is a very good habit. It helps a lot in life. But in an IQ test, you don't need a very, very elaborate kind of reading. हर चीज नहीं पढ़ना है. What you need is smart reading. Just try to have an understanding of basic terminologies till your 10th standard. You don't have to read all the books I'm saying. In every NCERT book, every lesson at the end, you have some kind of a terminology. Some terms are mentioned, the concepts. Briefly they will put it. They will call it notes or something. So every lesson will have notes which may be 10 points, 8 points, and you all have read it before. So just a small reading will tell you this sentence, this word means this, and this is what an IQ test needs from you. Once more I'm repeating, if you are able to understand your graduate level books, your language side of the game for any kind of an IQ test is fine. Whether you may call it vocabulary, whether you may call it facet of reading speed, whether you may call it knowledge, whether you may call it understanding. Now I've already talked about the understanding aspect. The once by repeating, putting everything into a short brief. For understanding, you just need terminology understanding till around 10th standard. NCERT बुक उठाओ, हर लेसन के पीछे एक कॉन्सेप्ट नोट्स होते हैं, वो पढ़ना है बस. Every book till that you would be understanding each and every passage, whatever it may come from. Now we'll do an experiment into it. I know you the people who believe in rationality, so let's look at an experiment. Okay. एक IQ टेस्ट के एक slot 1 को पकड़ता है. Okay, अभी एक one of the IQ tests has happened, and in the slot 1 there are 4 RCs asked. What we'll do is we'll move into that RCs. We'll pick the first passage, the first paragraph of every passage. Now, first paragraph tells you everything about the total comprehension of the passage. So the first paragraph is the most, I think, important in every passage. We'll pick all the first paragraph of all the 4 passages in the slot 1, and let's see, in understanding that thing, what kind of a knowledge we need it. Well, at the point what I'm saying is, if there is some scientific thing, did we need a Stephen Hawking kind of a novels? And when we are talking about humanities or anything, do we need any books explaining the GDP, economy or anything? The point is, see, general knowledge of the current affairs even is one of the top thing people say that you must be very much fluent with. In GDP it helps a lot. But once more the question remains, the elephant in the room is, do you need it in an IQ test? We'll check it. We'll check the slot 1 के चारों RCs को चेक करते हैं और एक एक पैराग्राफ उठाते हैं. So उसका इंट्रोडक्शन वाला पैराग्राफ, and let's see, are we able to understand it without even reading all the things? Even the point what I'm saying is, basic terminology will help you understand each and everything. Now, before moving into that experiment, let's talk about one more aspect before moving into that experiment. The one thing is, does knowledge helps you? For example, let's say there are 2 people, A and B, and A is from science and B is from humanities, let's say background. If there is a science passage in an IQ test, will it help you? Whom it will help a lot. The point what I'm saying is, knowledge actually hampers you. Why it hampers you? In any kind of an IQ test, when you talk about, all IQ test will actually change the paradigm. एक good IQ test जब भी लिखा जाएगा और उसमें RC का कोई passage डाला जाएगा, तो to create it, people might, or it can happen that you may have an understanding of the point which that passage might be saying, which might be contrary to the point you have totally read it in your school or the college times. So knowledge, usually prior knowledge hampers rather than helps you. A neutral mind would be more suited to handle any kind of an IQ test. I'm talking about the verbal aspect, okay? I'll take the quant and the DILR aspect even in the subsequent videos. Today I'm talking about the one more elephant in the room, and that is the reading habit. Let's move into the experiment now. Right now what we're doing is, we are looking at the 4 passages, or rather we should say the first paragraph of the 4 RCs, which was asked in the slot 1 of the recent concluded IQ test. Now when we look at why I have picked the first paragraph is, I think it's a very good representation of the whole passage. वो passage में what kind of a vocabulary, any understanding language, कोई difficulty level, we would be able to understand it very well if we look at the first paragraph of the RC. So I picked all the first paragraph of all the 4 RCs. So we have 4 paragraphs in front of you. Just let's read it out. Let's see how much knowledge we needed to understand this passage. The first passage I'm reading it out, first the paragraph, sorry. The landing in Australia, the British colonists were not much impressed with the small-bodied, slender-snouted marsupials called bandicoots. Their muzzle, which is much too long, gives them an air exceedingly stupid, one naturalist noted in 1805. They nicknamed one type the zebra rat because of its black striped rump for their back. Now, when we're looking at this paragraph, and this was one of the RCs which was asked in slot 1, what kind of a phrase or a word or a clause which you are struggling with? Now, let's look at this word. You might struggle with it. Naturalist. It's very easy to understand, even if I don't know anything about science or anything. I would understand naturalist, the person who deals with the nature. Simple logic, if I put it. So the only thing I'm struggling with the marsupial. Now, that's what I'm saying. If I have the basic terminology of my school times even, if I'll go through it, I will know what is the marsupial. Now let's look at the next paragraph. Oftentimes when economists cross borders, they are less interested in learning from others than in invading their garden plots. Gary Becker, for instance, pioneered the idea of human capital. To do so, he famously tackled topics like crime and domesticity, applying methods honed in the study of markets to domains of non-market life. He projected economics outward into new realms, for example, by revealing the extent to which humans calculate marginal utilities when choosing their spouse or stealing from neighbors. Now, when you look at this paragraph, let's say, do you really feel any word or a phrase or a clause or a sentence in which you're struggling? I don't see any. The simple thing is, if you have a graduate level knowledge skill, you would be able to understand. The graduate level knowledge skill is defined as a person who is able to understand his or her graduate level books. Now look at the third passage. In the summer of 2022, subscribers to the US streaming service HBO Max were alarmed to discover that dozens of platforms offering from the COVID-themed heist thriller Lockdown to the recent remake of The Witches has been quietly removed from the service. The news seemed like vindication to those who had long warned that streaming was more about controlling access to the cultural commons and expanding. Easy English, easy to understand. This was the most difficult of the passages, so I'll just go through it. The idea of craftsmanship is not simply nostalgic. Crafts require distinct skills and all-around approach to the work that involves the whole product, as the individual parts, and in an attitude that necessitates devotion to the job and focus on the communal interest. The concept of craft emphasizes the human touch and the individual judgment. Now, when you look at it, might be some words you might struggle with, but then also I don't think this word is in any way much more difficult to understand if you're a graduate, if you understand graduate level books. So the point what I'm trying to say, when you look at all the 4 paragraphs, all the 4 RCs, there is not a single RC which actually you feel a challenge in understanding. And so the point, once more coming back to the main thing which we are talking about, you don't need a lot of reading, you need smart reading. So let's conclude the video now. So just summarizing the things, क्या क्या चीजें हमने learn किया है. The first thing is, do smart reading. Don't do extensive reading, no need for that. And have your perspective very clear, what kind of a testing an IQ test actually focuses upon. Focus on that. Okay, but before making the concluding remark, I should say reading is very good in life. Okay, it will help you in lot of knowledge, wisdom, and even understanding. But still, you have to understand, in an IQ test, is it needed or not? And why not you check it? Why don't you go into each and every passages, go into most difficult passages. In the GMAT, there are many passages which are very difficult to understand. Apply the same kind of a theory we used here, that if we had a basic terminology understanding till our school times, till let's say 10th standard, are we able to understand the passage? And you will see, even in the most difficult passages, The only thing is basic terminology, the things which are written at the end of the lessons in the NCERT books will help you understand it much better than reading extensive Stephen Hawking or autobiographies or any fiction. Okay, so focus on the NCERT books or the school books till 10th standard. You don't have to read the books. Go to the end of the lesson, and in the end of the lesson there would be terminologies like these are the concepts they have mentioned. Read it, and you don't have to memorize it because you've already read it. You will easily go through it, and it will actually refresh your mind. The whole thing will come to your mind. So that's what is needed in IQ test. So best of luck, and let's see you in the next video.